Hello and welcome to this yoga class all about self-compassion and forgiveness. This is a little bit of an experiment as I am not used to recording full-length yoga classes like this, so please forgive any technical difficulties. I'm recording with the front-facing camera, which I know does not offer as high resolution, but I want to be able to see in the monitor that you can see my full body on the screen. So that's why the video might be a little grainy, and I apologize for that. In addition, I know that when I get further away from the camera, my voice is going to become more faint. I'm going to do my best to speak up, but just to let you know, you might need to turn up the volume a little later on in the class. Looking into getting a wireless mic so that the volume could be consistent throughout. But for today, we'll work with what we have. So the other thing to be aware of in this class, I had thought about trying to put together the full list of equipment that you'll need, but I am a little bit of an improviser. If I think of something while explaining one of the poses, that list might change in the middle of the class. So instead what I'm going to do is, if you're seeing this on YouTube, there should be a list of equipment along with the video. So if you didn't look at that yet, go and look at that, and then you'll know what you want to gather. If you don't own everything that I'm going to be showing, I'm happy to help you find a good source for it, like the websites I use and where I got mine, or the kind of considerations when you're purchasing these items. And also, you know, there are sometimes substitutes that we can use, like folded up towels if you don't have blankets. So I'm happy to help out with any of that if you just send me an email. And obviously also there might be some items you want to add to your collection, but I don't want you to be prevented from doing the class right now. Don't let that stop you. There's always a way to adapt and be creative and resourceful. Okay, last little bit before we start. So the last time I uploaded one of these classes, I had some trouble on my YouTube channel because of the music. So I'm not going to be able to play the song that I would like to at the end in Shavasana. So what I want to suggest instead is that you queue up the song for yourself and have it ready. You can do it in another window, another tab, and just have it right on YouTube, or if you want to download the song like in iTunes or Amazon Music, something like that, or pull it up on Spotify, whatever music service you subscribe to. If you do, it should be there, or otherwise, again, you can find it for free on YouTube. They just don't let me put it in my class, and I don't want to get my channel shut down, so I am not going to take the risk of playing it within this video, and I'm sorry that it's an extra step, but that song, and this is also in the comments, if you want to see how it is spelled, it's by India Arie, and the song is called I Am Light. Okay, so if you want to pause this and go and get that all set up so you have it ready, and then when you come to the end of this video and it's time for Shavasana, you can just click over and press play on the other one, and you will be all set for your meditative experience in Shavasana. All right, so let's get started, and it's a great idea if you can have a yoga mat. If you don't have one, you can still do the class, but it's great to be on a soft surface like carpet, and make sure that you're going to be comfortable. So think about the temperature in the room, think about what you're wearing. This is going to be a more restorative class, so you're prone to getting cold. It's not going to be a hot yoga class where you're generating heat in the body with flow and rapid heartbeat. So it's really warm where I am right now, which is why I'm dressed like this, but actually if I were taking the class instead of teaching and being more active and talking, I probably would have a sweatshirt on, and just, you know, you probably want to be covered up and really hold the heat in. It's a more soothing and comforting experience most of the time as a student, where you're more passive in the class. So make sure you have everything set up the way you want it, and I have overhead lights on so you can see me, but in your space you probably want it a little more dim especially not with overhead lights that are going to be in your eyes when you lie down. That is not relaxing. I have a candle going for a little bit of ambiance, so thinking about what you need to get your space set up. And then the last thing I'll say about the timing of the class is I'm shooting for a 1-hour class. I'm already 5 minutes in, so there's going to be a decent amount of talking because I'm helping you get set up and understand the prop setup for each pose. I have kind of budgeted about 5 minutes per pose, but that really is how long you would want to hold the pose. And I'm going to be, if it takes you a minute or two to get set up, then it leaves, 3 minutes in the pose. So what I want to say is if you want to pause and hold the poses for longer, that's totally fine. Or if you have done this sequence the first time through and you understand everything, you can come back to it and go through it again, and you can get into the poses a little more quickly and spend more time there. Or you can even take notes and go back and do it on your own and have a more soothing experience without all the talking. So about 5 minutes in each pose is about what I've budgeted, and I want you to know that that's a nice soothing experience that allows you to go a little deeper in each pose and kind of something to shoot for if you're doing your own practice. Even if you have more time, you could go up to 10 minutes in each pose and really go deep. So the first thing that we are going to do is really just get grounded and settle into stillness. So take a moment, take a deep breath, and I've just done the same. And then what we're going to do is set up for a pose called Supta Baddha Konasana, reclining bound angle pose. And I'm going to be lying back and getting relaxed, getting still. So I'll show you how to set up and then we'll go into it. What I use for this is a bolster. You can also use instead some folded up yoga blankets if you have them. I like these cotton ones that are nice for folding into different rectangular shapes or rolled shapes. So if you are using blankets, you can have the kind of oblong shape and 2 of them stacked. So that makes about the same size as a bolster. Or use a bolster. And now the other thing that you should get if you have one is a yoga strap. So I won't go through the basic tutorial of how to make the loop on the strap like I do in my intro class, but you want it so that when you pull, it doesn't open, and make it nice and big at first. Okay? If you don't have a strap, take 2 blocks, or you can use rolled up blankets in place of that, and I'll explain all of this. And then lastly, I like to have 1 blanket to go under my head. It's a nice to have, not a need to have, but it helps me relax into the pose. I'm starting with, we call this the storage fold of blankets because that's how they always go in a closet. Don't ask why. It's the storage fold. Okay, and I'm going to make that into a pillow. Okay, so let me explain what to do with all of these props. So you sit in front of your bolster. And put the strap around your waist, just like a belt. It's going to be really loose. And then bring the soles of your feet together and bring them in close to your perineum, and how close they're going to come will vary according to your knee joints and your groin flexibility. So don't force it, but bring them as close as is comfortable, and this is why we wanted the strap pretty loose to start. Then take the strap and loop it under the outside edge of your feet, and now you can take the loose end of the strap and pull it until it's tight, but not super tight, just like a nice firm loop. But you want to still be able to move, because then when I put my hands down by my sides, I'm going to pick up my pelvis, tuck my tailbone, and I'm bringing a little more space in between. So it's maybe about 6 inches between the back of my pelvis and the bolster. So I tuck my tailbone, lengthening the low back as I lie down. So I don't want the tailbone right next to the bolster, because then it really arches the low back. Instead, I want to extend the low back as I lie down. The bolster is really meeting the bottom of my ribs, and then I pull this pillow under the back of my head. You could unfold the blanket for a lower pillow. Once you get comfortable, take your hands out to the side with palms up. Another thing that's nice to have is an eye pillow. Okay, I actually have one on the way from Amazon. A silk pillow has like lavender inside of it, so that's really nice. Little aromatherapy. Covering the eyes helps you, again, go deeper inside. Last thing I want to explain before we stay in the pose. If you don't have a strap, that's when either a block or a folded blanket will come outside of each knee. So really just, you don't want to be reclining in this pose with the knees out to the sides and the feet together. You don't want to have your legs just hanging in the air. You want to make sure they're supported with either the strap or blocks or blankets, or you can even do both. And then once you're comfortable, close your eyes. And let your abdomen become calm and recede like a calm lake, resting on your back body. Release your jaw, release your tongue, and breathe into your chest. Let your chest broaden, let your ribs broaden with each inhalation. But don't force the breath. Let it be a soft breath in, soft release out. So as I explained before, we would stay for 5 minutes in this pose. I don't want the video to go on forever, so I'm going to move on to the next pose, and just know that you can come back to this later and spend more time in each pose. Consider this a first time through for the sake of learning. Now, how to come out of this pose. It's sort of a reverse of how you came in. Press your hands next to your pelvis on the floor and lean on your arms as you sit up. So you want to avoid contracting your abs as you sit up. And then I just took the strap out from under the edges of my feet, and I hold on to my shins just in case the knees are sensitive as I extend them. Come out of the strap, and here we are. Now, hopefully, without so much talking, you would feel your attention turn inward, and you feel yourself becoming more calm after 5 minutes in that pose. And that's really an entry point into self-compassion and forgiveness, is that relaxation and the feeling you don't have to do anything, you don't have to be anything specific, it's okay to just be. The second pose is another passive pose. We'll put the body now in a different position and lie back and just let the body settle into this new shape. So for this one, you take the blanket, and again, remember, storage fold, right? Unfold it once. So you have this kind of rectangle, where it's flat and it's almost square. Actually, you can even unfold it more. And then roll it up. Now again, your blankets might be a different size, different thickness. You might have to experiment with the props that you have. Certain bolsters are small and narrow enough that they might be about this shape. So you can try with what you have, improvise if you need to, email me with questions. What I'm going to do is place this so it's going to be underneath my upper back. The hardest part of this pose is lying down in the right spot so the blanket is in the right place and you don't have to get up and readjust. So, okay. And the other thing I'll say about this is it is a personal preference in some sense. So, for example, you don't want it all the way down at your lumbar spine. But for me, it feels really nice toward my lower ribs. And I'm okay without a blanket under my head. My neck is unsupported, and that feels fine to me. You may want to put another blanket under your head. You may want to have this blanket more toward your upper ribs. So with the blanket across your mat, you can sit in front of it, support yourself with your hands as you lie back, and just experiment with the placement. All the while, as you're moving through this, just keep that action of tucking the tailbone, engaging the abdominal muscles. Make sure your lower back is not arching as you're maneuvering. So use the core to support the spine while you're getting settled in the pose. And then once you have gotten into position, you can extend the legs one at a time, feet slightly apart as in Shavasana, and because the arms can't go down by the sides, because the blanket is there, the arms go out to the sides. So then you take a deep breath in. Once you're in a comfortable position where you know you can stay, take a deep breath in and a long, slow exhalation and close your eyes. And now you can really let the abdomen relax. And again, call to mind that image of the stillness of a lake on a day with no wind. The contents of the abdomen rests on the back body. So the abdomen is a place where we hold tension, we hold shame, and when we really let go there, it can bring such a sense of comfort. Relax the tongue, relax the jaw, relax all the muscles of the face. Let your body melt over the blanket and absorb the chest opening that comes with this position. And again, you would stay for 5 minutes, but for the sake of keeping on time, I'm going to show you how to come out. So I bend one leg, place the sole of the foot on the floor, and then turn toward the side where the leg is still straight. So bend one leg and turn toward the other leg, and just roll over and press up with my hands to sit up. So So the next pose is supported bridge pose. This is one that requires a lot, potentially a lot of props. But again, we use what we have. I'm going to take my bolster. Now, the important thing for this one, you want the feet to be supported at about the same level as the height of the shoulders. So I just placed my block out here for my feet. Well, that looks, I mean, it's lower, but it's not that much lower. I actually have a thicker block, so maybe I'll use that. Okay, so my head and shoulders are going to be down on the floor. And if you're on a hard surface, you'll probably want a flat blanket to cushion the back of your head. Okay, that's what it would look like. But I'm not going to leave it there because on a carpeted surface, it prevents my neck from extending. Just wanted to show you how that would be set up. And then we'll use our strap again for this. So, I'm not really sure how far out that block needs to go. I'm just getting in to test the position of the block. Okay, I promise it will be worth it. So, I'll come back up and give you step-by-step instructions, but this is the shape of the pose. Notice how the top of my shoulders are on the floor, then this bolster is supporting my chest and opening. Okay, so I've got a bolster, or you could use, again, the 2 folded blankets instead of the bolster. And then I bring my strap around my thighs and pull it almost all the way tight, so enough room to maneuver, but it kind of stays in position as I come into the pose. Then I'm going to sit in front of the bolster, come up onto it, and push back until the tops of my shoulders come onto the floor, the neck extends, and now the whole back of the neck is not on the floor. There's still a natural curve in the neck. I just reach and tighten the strap now. Then extend my legs and see how the strap holds the thighs together. Adjust the position of the block if you need to. And then this time the arms are in a goal pose position, so it's like this, elbow bent, 90 degrees on the floor. Now feel how once you get in position, that strap holds your thighs in place so the legs can fully relax. The reason for having the block under the heels is so this pose doesn't strain the lower back at all, but instead we're allowing the abdomen to relax. Are you noticing a theme here? And once again, allow your body to absorb the position. Surrender to the glorious, beautiful feeling of the chest opening. Freedom that comes with your breath in this pose. And you would stay for 5 minutes, but in the interest of time, I'll instruct you on how to come out. Now with this one as well, this one will bend both knees. Bring the feet up as close to your bolster as you can, and then roll to one side and support yourself with your hands. You come down lying on your side and then press with your hands to sit up And then remove your strap. Okay, so this next pose has 2 sides. So it would be 5 minutes total, roughly 2 per side, and a minute switching in between. And for this, you'll just need 1 blanket. So from the storage fold, fold it 1 more time. So you've got this thick blanket chunk. And this is pigeon pose. This is a more common yoga pose. For those of you who've taken yoga classes, you'll probably be familiar with it. And by the way, if you haven't taken yoga at all before, please reach out to me and I can recommend some beginner resources because I know I'm moving a little fast for anyone who's brand new to this. Okay. So with your blanket chunk, I'm going to show, so actually doing pigeon on the floor, with anyone who has tightness in the hips, which is really most of us, we're bypassing the opening of the pose by trying to just be down on the floor and doing it. So here's what I recommend to do instead. So I am bringing my leg into position with the shin parallel to the front of my mat. And then depending on how tight or how open your hips are, your hips can be further back or your knee can be bent more. So if you're rather inflexible, your hips will be more forward. If you're more flexible, your hips are more back. Wherever you are, support that outer thigh with the blanket. And then kind of watch how I'm walking my back leg into position. So it's straight back from the hip, it's not out to the side. Okay, now I'm sitting up tall and there's already a stretch in the piriformis. Lift my chest up, take a few breaths here, and then slowly walk my hands forward and come down. And rest my forehead on my hands. So I would stay for 2 minutes. Now let's switch sides. So just coming out to hands and knees, move the blanket to the other side. Walk the other leg forward, shin parallel to the front of the mat, and sitting with the blanket supporting the outer thigh, outer buttock, wherever it falls for you, depending on the openness of your hips. Long, tall spine. Breathe length into your spine. Make sure that back leg is straight back from the hip and not out to the side. And then with an exhalation, start to slowly walk forward. Extend the spine forward as you come down and rest your head on your hands. And again, you would stay 2 minutes, then walk your hands in to come up, place weight on your hands, and bring that front leg back to hands and knees to come out. Okay. This next one, we're working with movement a little bit. So it's a little more playful, joyful, not so serious. We'll lie down on our backs and there is no equipment needed. So once you lie down on your back, take your feet in the air, reach for the inner arches of your feet. See how my wrists are inside my ankles? If you can't reach your feet, here's where the strap comes in. Place the strap on top of the soles of the feet, And see how now my wrists are outside the ankles. So the feet come wide, the knees are outside the ribs, and whether you're holding the strap or holding your feet, rock back and forth. This is called Happy Baby, and you can press, as you rock from side to side, press the knee on that side toward the floor. Now you might actually get down to the floor, but even if you're not, press in that direction. And this is just a really fun one to hang out for a couple minutes and play with. I don't have that luxury today, but I already just did my practice, so this is for you. Okay, then the second move in this position, with the knees together now, place the hands, palms down outside the hips, and then just start to circle the knees. And you're using the weight of your legs to massage the low back. This is one of my favorites. It's so simple. We hold so much tension in the low back. And by just rolling, you can even bring the feet down a little bit so you're taking all the work out of your abs completely, and just massaging the low back on the floor. Kind of the connective tissue all around the lumbar spine and tailbone for me starts to feel really tense. Pretty much every day. I mean, from sitting, from standing, from driving, from anything. And this just feels so delicious. So you play with that for a few minutes on your own, and then we'll move on. Okay, I think I am back on track from my long instructions in the beginning. So this next one, again, you could spend 5 minutes, but we won't today. It's a standing pose working with movement. Ragdoll. So for this pose, you can stand at the top of your mat. I'll stand this way and then I'll turn to the side so you can see the other dimension. Feet a little wider than hip distance apart, and then to come into a forward bend, place your hands on your hips. Now press your feet down, lift up through the legs, and extend the spine forward as you bend down. So you're not just collapsing down, but extend forward as you bend down. That's an important action to protect the spine as you come down and to support the spine as you come down. And then many of us will end up kind of in this position with straight legs where, you know, my spine is closer to horizontal than it is vertical. So what can we do about that? Start to bend the knees and see how my spine comes now closer to vertical. And I can really use gravity, and I can also hold my elbows and pull down with my arms and just surrender to gravity and let my spine extend more. And then I can swing and rock and just feel what feels good in my body. So self-compassion is about doing what feels good, right? Partly. And forgiveness, you know? You don't have to be so disciplined. It's okay to want to be comfortable sometimes. You don't always have to choose the hardest route. You can choose ease sometimes. So stay in ragdoll and play with it. See if it feels better to stay still or to move. And you could do that for up to 5 minutes. And then when you're ready to come out, just again, we always want to support the spine as we're moving between positions. So place your hands on your knees and extend forward as you then stand up tall. Okay, the next one requires some explanation. And what I am going to show you, actually, I'll show you a side profile view. I have this little tiny wall, so it's actually not wide enough for me to practice and stay in the pose, but it will be better to display it for you. And then, so just know that if you can tell that it's like this wide, normally you need more space than that, right? If you have a wall that's like maybe just a little wider than your body, that would be ideal because you don't want to be like falling off the wall. That sounds scary. It's really not. Let's get into it. You'll see what I mean. So I'm going to use my bolster. You could also, again, use the 2 rectangular blankets stacked. And I place it actually about the width of a block away from the wall. So my legs are going to be up, feet up at the top, butt down here, and then my body melts over the bolster, shoulders and head here. So the reason for the space here is I want my tailbone, my hips, to actually, my buttocks, I guess, to drop down into this space and really anchor me and let the legs sink down. That's the reason for the space here. Options for this pose, you may want to have a thin, flat blanket underneath your head and shoulders, especially if you're on a hard floor. And then you do for sure want to have a strap. Before you come in, it goes around your thighs. Almost all the way tight, but just enough room for you to still move. You don't really need a yoga mat at all for this pose. Could be what you use under your head and shoulders, folded up if you're on a hard floor, but really a blanket is better because that allows your neck to extend a little better than a sticky mat. And then when you have when you have your props assembled, the strap around your thighs, watch how I sit sideways on my bolster. So I want to actually bring the hip that's next to the wall, bring it right up to the wall. Hopefully this doesn't result in any bloopers because this wall is so narrow and I'm so close to it. With that hip right on the wall, I'm leaning on one hand. So I turn over and I keep my buttocks and the backs of my legs right next to the wall. And I take the legs up the wall. See what I mean about how the buttocks are dropping down between the bolster and the wall. Last thing, I tighten up this strap before I take my head and shoulders back. Okay, and then the arms are in goalpost position for this pose. You probably can't see, but my one arm is squished next to the wall, so that's not ideal. But just so you know, for your own reference, the arms should be in goalpost position with plenty of room to spread out. Now, the strap holds the legs together so they can really fully relax. And again, notice how this bolster is really under my lumbar and thoracic spine, and then the cervical is, more on the floor. But the bolster is not under my tailbone. This pose is, it's the most restorative inversion because it doesn't require any effort at all once you get into it. The blood drains out of the legs, returns to the heart easily without the body having to work at that. So it's refreshing for the body in that sense. And overall, it's deeply relaxing. So in each of these poses, allow yourself to absorb the position, really relax into it, and notice your experience. If your experience is matching what I'm saying, and what else are you noticing about it? Relax the tongue, relax the jaw, relax the abdomen. Allow the chest to spread with your breath. You could stay here for 5 minutes, and when you're ready to come out, bend your knees roll to one side. Just be careful as you roll off of your bolster and press with your hands to sit up, and then slip the strap off of your legs. Now we're going to do some twisting, restorative twists, of course. So twisting poses normally can be somewhat heating, but these will be more cooling. We're going to first do supine, reclining, and then prone. So this could be a total of 10 minutes in your practice. 5 minutes, like 2 per side, 2.5 per side in the supine, and 5 minutes in the prone. So for supine, you don't need any props at all. You could potentially use some blankets, but many people will not need them. For the prone position, you'll want to have a bolster or, again, the 2 blankets folded in the long rectangle and stacked. For the reclining twist, we're going to lie back and clear off your mat, clear your space. Lie back with knees bent and feet on the floor. Take the arms out to the sides in a T position. Now take your feet up in the air, so the knees in toward the chest. You're going to take your knees down to one side, and as you do, bring them toward the elbow on that side. So, see, I'm now in this position with the outer leg on the floor, but see how my knee is close to my elbow. It's not down here. This is a more vulnerable position for the low back. Your low back will be protected more if you have the legs up closer to the knee, or the knees up closer to the elbow. And now once you're in this position, exhale the opposite shoulder onto the floor and turn the head in the opposite direction. I did that for a minute, but now I'm turning back so you can hear me talk, but this is the final position for the pose. And then as you breathe, you can feel the twist coming more into your core and your body relaxing into the position. If this back arm is not coming down, that's when you can bring some height under the outer leg to allow that shoulder to be down on the floor. It's not relaxing to have it just hanging out there suspended in space. So if it won't come down within a few breaths, then support the legs to lift them up. Let me show you quickly what that looks like. So you could take 1 or 2 blankets like this, or even up higher if you need to. Stack it up as high as you need. And then we would spend 2.5 minutes there, go to the second side. Notice how my shoulder doesn't just come down automatically. It takes a few breaths to relax into it. But it's really so delightful for the muscles all the way up and down the core and the shoulders and chest. Use your breath to help create even more space. Then after 2.5 minutes on this side, bring your knees up to center, feet down to the floor, turn to one side, press with your hands to sit up. And now for the prone position, you picture the pose we were just in, you really just flip it upside down. But here's how you get into it. So again, you'll have your bolster or the 2 blankets folded in the long rectangle and stacked. And now, when I lie down on my bolster, I'm bringing the thigh perpendicular with the direction of the mat. So the thigh is right next to the bottom edge of the bolster, and then I lean on my hands and extend my trunk forward as I bring my chest down on the bolster, and I will spread the arms out and turn my head the opposite way from my legs. Okay, well, I'll go to the second side so that I'm talking in the direction of the camera while we stay in the pose. So you would hold that for 2.5 minutes, then turn the knees the other way. And again, you're twisting and you're lengthening as you come down. Rest the side of your face. Actually, it might be more comfortable to have the arms in a goalpost position in this one. And again, breathe space between all the muscles of this whole girdle. Shoulders back and core. Shoulders and chest back and core. Breathing length between your vertebrae. And also feel how soothing it can be to have that gentle pressure on your abdomen, the pressure of the bolster with your body weight and gravity. Our whole nervous system responds to gentle touch, and when you're placing yourself in a restorative yoga pose, that is a form of gentle touch, wherever your body is contacting your props and contacting the floor. And this whole practice is designed to help your sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response, to help take that down and deactivate that, and activate the parasympathetic, rest and relaxation. So you would stay on each side for 2.5 minutes, then press with your hands to come up, and I just come out to hands and knees that way. Okay, we're on our last pose before Shavasana, and obviously it's been a good yoga class if you look at my hair. There's no point in fixing it. We're going to keep the bolster in the same spot and take child's pose over the bolster. Now, I'll show you kind of the extra credit prop to use in this is a blanket, and this is another choose your own adventure where you might take, the thin flat format or make a little roll in it that goes in your hip crease. If it seems like too much to mess around with the blanket, don't worry about the blanket. But this is one of my favorite ways to use a yoga prop in like all of yoga props and all poses, because when I take child's pose, let me back up for a second. Well, okay, I'll finish the thought and then I'll back up and just say what is child's pose. But when I take this pose, having the blanket in my hip crease creates this delicious spreading in my low back. So this is why I'm such a fan of this particular way to use this prop. Okay, child's pose, knees apart, big toes together, and if the whole top of your foot, front of your ankle does not come down on your mat, you can take a rolled blanket under the front of your ankle. Okay, but you want to have it supported. You don't want to just have it hanging because that's not comfortable. So have the front of your ankle supported by the floor or by a blanket. Then optionally bring that blanket inside your hip crease, deep in the hip crease. And, okay, so if you've got this blanket here, hold on to it as you lean forward. Otherwise, you can just extend your arms forward. So coming into child's pose with the forehead down on this bolster. Okay? So the bolster's got to be between your knees. And then the hands, arms, forearms, come here right under your forehead. Okay, and then you find a comfortable position. So actually this feels nice to me tonight. Just kind of letting the elbows come down, palms of the hands on the bolster, and turn my head to one side. So I would stay here for 2.5 minutes, then turn the head to the other side. Or if you're looking straight down, you can just stay in one position for 5 minutes. And again, let your body absorb the effects of gravity in this pose. So feel how the back body spreads with each breath. With the front body supported, your buttocks can settle down onto your heels. Really feel the opening in your hips and groins that might not be possible in other versions of child's pose. So the whole philosophy of this entire practice is, instead of actively opening, which can sometimes be forcing things open, we are allowing things to open. We are accepting the opening passively. Put ourselves in position and then simply allow it to happen. It's just an entirely different feeling, isn't it? After 5 minutes in child's pose, slowly come up and set up for Shavasana. Now, to be really honest with you, Shavasana for me feels best just flat on the floor. Some people have some really amazing prop setups that they enjoy. I like to keep it really simple. But what I like isn't important for you. I just wanted to share that because if you kind of don't like messing around with all the props and you'd rather keep it simple, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to try it with some props, a rolled up blanket under the backs of the knees is a fan favorite, it seems. A lot of people love that. Another thing that you might try is a blanket under the head, just to elevate the head slightly and allow the back of the neck to relax. So if you're doing that, have the blanket under the back of the neck, just right up to the tops of the shoulders. The eye pillow, if you have it, is really nice for Shavasana. And the other thing that I love to do in Shavasana is take a blanket over me without setting it on fire with my candle. And it just really helps me kind of retreat from the world to be under a blanket just like this. Okay? And then coming into Shavasana, you could even take Shavasana in one of the poses that we have practiced tonight. You know, there's no reason you can't stay in a pose for longer and play the song and have that experience. But if you're just taking regular Shavasana on the floor, keep your knees bent as you lie back. So extending the low back, tucking the tailbone before you then extend the legs. Let the feet fall out to the sides, hands out by your sides, palms up far enough away from the body that you feel the chest is able to spread. And then, okay, so I'm describing the setup. So at some point, you'll turn this off and you'll go cue up the song and you'll press play. And when you are ready, then you'll take a deep breath in and a deep exhalation, and you will settle into Shavasana. And let all movement depart from your body. Let all impulses to movement leave your body. Now, because you're going to have that experience with the song, I won't talk you through Shavasana in this video. So I just want to say, remember at the very end of your practice, when you come out of Shavasana, come out gradually, slowly, turn onto your side, rest there with your eyes closed before you come all the way up. Give yourself a gradual re-entry into the world. Be gentle with yourself. And as you are practicing your Shavasana, really listen to the words of the song without thinking too hard about them. The goal of music, it's a message to really get immersed in, get lost in, and help you stay in the moment. Because I know that for me, meditation, I do silent meditation now, but it hasn't always come easily. It doesn't still always come easily. And music is something that helps me stay grounded in the present. So I think, this song can be really powerful for that purpose for you. I hope you love it as much as I do. I would love to hear what you thought of this practice. And I would encourage you to come back to it. Anytime that you are feeling consumed by shame, by regret, by perfectionism, feeling that you're not good enough, feeling that you're making too many mistakes, you're failing, all of those sentiments, the practice that we've just gone through is really immensely healing. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here, going through this practice with me. If you are looking for additional content from me on these themes, subscribe to my email list, subscribe to this channel, and there will be more to come. Thank you. Enjoy your Shavasana, and good night.